A quiet retcon has happened, and this time, it's a good one. It straight up kills one of the worst pieces of lore that Blizzard has ever introduced into the game. First though, you've got to understand what this new lore kills, and it is this: one burning legion across every timeline. This was a piece of what we call Word of God canon that came directly from now disgraced developer Alex Afrasiabi, and it was bloody stupid at the time. It comes from the days of Warlords of Draenor. It made no sense then, and it makes even less now. And per this lore, everything was as we understood it, following the normal rules of an alternative timeline, except for the Burning Legion, because apparently there was just one Burning Legion, and they happened to span every single different timeline. This was rather loopy. There are numerous ways in which this actually breaks the lore, and it did come, of course, from the man who coined the phrase, "no negativity in the dojo." Hardly surprising then how bonkers this was. Issues arose. I mean, why stick with our Azeroth if you're one legion across all timelines? There's countless other Azeroths you can go and get instead. Why not use all of this time to build an infinite army using, say, infinite ore chords, a bit like how Rathian wanted to do back when he was in his Mad Lad phase, and so on. If the Legion was one across every timeline, they sure managed to squander every opportunity that came with it. And per Alex, this is because the Nether spans all timelines. Made little sense then, still makes no sense now. And best of all, the mended lore that I'm about to present to you today fits right in with the latest story developments, leaving us with a tantalizing look into the future and a tantalizing segue to our sponsor, squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming, where they've actually got an awesome new product that's an amazing way for you to get started for free, and this product is called Biosites. And these basically bring Squarespace's design prowess to a category that honestly often does lack design. Biosites have lovely, rich modules that put your content first, and they're full of great features to help you stand out and even earn some money by accepting payments to connect with your audience or your content or even some other platforms. You even get lovely analytics to report it all. It really is an awesome link in bio solution, and even if you don't have, say, a product to sell, and perhaps you just want to put your best foot forward in terms of your portfolio, having an excellently made biosite really will help you stand out by giving the people you interact with a positive experience when they interact with you. They'll be like, oh look, I clicked on that person's bio and the thing they put together looks really nice. That's a good first impression. You can almost see this as your digital business card. And then, of course, to head on to Squarespace proper, you can then nail your full site design using their award-winning templates. You can even make your own template with the new blueprint feature that I've talked about that makes an already smooth process even more smooth. And of course, all with their brilliant feature set like e-commerce, memberships, email newsletters, all presented in an all-in-one platform that just makes your life easy. So, build your site free today with my link, and use code Bellular Gaming for 10% off an annual plan when you're ready to send it live. That's squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming. I'll start it with something funny. When we go to the Shadowlands, we meet Draka. Our Draka, Mother of Thrall, not the Draka that we met in Warlords of Draenor. This is quite clearly our Shadowlands. If someone dies on another Azeroth timeline, they're not going to appear in the Shadowlands where we can see them. In Shadowlands, we see Draka and Thrall connecting, right? Talking to each other. And it's quite clearly our timeline's Draka, the one who gave her life to save a son that she would really never see. Not alternate universe Draka, who actually never had a son, had a daughter instead, who happens to be alive and well in Orgrimmar. So yes, the fact that the Draka that we meet is the one that died to save her baby and she now gets to talk to her baby, Thrall in the Shadowlands, it quite proves it's the timeline that we lived. Now yes, I will address one developer comment. Steve Denuser talked, in what was quite frankly pointless waffle, about ropes and thread, and he seemed to insinuate that Draka, despite acting just like our Draka, is actually a rope made of many different threads. All the threads being different Drakas that all pull together into the Shadowlands. And frankly, I'll just say this. Steve, I'm down with you being on the mushrooms, but don't be tripping when you're codifying your thoughts down to actually write the canon. But anyway, what Steve said in that interview is not reflective of what we actually see in the game, where the denizens of the Shadowlands were quite clearly all from the main timeline. So, now that that stuff is well and truly dead, let's return to things. 10.1.5's time rifts take us to alternative timelines, and in these timelines, characters are different. They are their own universe's incarnation of those characters. We can cross over a bit to close those rifts because timelines breaking into each other is pretty bad, but it is firmly the case that these are separate timelines with separate characters. Now, seeing alternative universe Varian makes sense, as does the likes of Deathbringer Uther. So we know how a timeline works for different mortals, right? It's just like, yeah, it's another timeline, it's another you, it's not really you, they had a different time, right? We already know this in the game. Just look at Gul'dan. Main universe Gul'dan died decades ago, and alternative universe Gul'dan from the Warlords of Draenor expansion is the guy who, of course, brought forward the plotline of the Legion expansion. Well, in one of the timelines we visit, the Legion have already won the War of the Ancients. They have Azeroth. Illidan is, in fact, the Regent Lord of Kalimdor. So, if they can get Azeroth, they've won. Why bother with us then in our timeline? If it is indeed, as Afrasabi said, one Legion across all timelines, then they've already won. So clearly, another timeline's Legion getting another timeline's Azeroth doesn't actually matter to us because they're separate timelines. And that's very much how alternative timelines work in most pieces of fiction. It's one of the cleaner ways to do it, and thank God, because what they originally tried to go with was a total mess. So, to us, we're in the prime timeline, but that's only because it's from our perspective. Now, yes, there is the idea of the one true timeline, but that's not literally the one true timeline. The people who tell us that are the Titans, and that means it's just the plan that they have. Their one true timeline is the one in which things go in the way that they desire, and that's why they set everybody up to defend this timeline. I mean, hell, the whole cosmic setup of the various different powers vying for control, the game and that lore breaks if there is one Legion across every single timeline. Whereas, like, why is there not one set of Titans across every timeline? I mean, in Uldaroth, we get to see a world where the Titans have just been winning. They've been free to continue their experiments. Now, in our timeline, the Titans were defeated at Nihilum. The Titans clearly follow the normal timeline rules. It's not one Titan pantheon across every timeline. So yes, once again, an example of one Legion across all time making no sense. Now what does this mean for, say, Sargeras? Or perhaps for the Eridar who would become Sargeras' lieutenants? If there are many different timelines of Argus, and many different timelines of those different beings, like Archimonde and the various Eridar who would eventually be corrupted, then how come there's only one Archimonde across all timelines? You see, that's what Afrasabi and Co. said at the end of Warlords of Draenor, essentially, that the Archimonde that we defeat there is the same as the Archimonde who fell in Warcraft 3, because an Archimonde is an Archimonde and there's one Legion across all of time. This is total bollocks that doesn't stand to reason, and that is a good thing. Here's why. We killed Kil'jaeden in the Twisting Nether during the Legion expansion. His death is final. Archimonde died in Warcraft 3, but outside the Twisting Nether. Fueled by the soul of Argus, he would be able to regenerate eventually. In Warlords of Draenor's confusion, we again defeated Archimonde, but within the Twisting Nether, truly killing him. Yes, Blizzard stated that Archimonde was our Archimonde there, that there is one Legion across every timeline. As I've talked about though, that does not fit the preceding decade of lore. The same goes with Kil'jaeden, because per that old Afrasabi lore, the Kil'jaeden whose plan got interrupted by Garrosh in that really amazing Warlords of Draenor launch cinematic where the orcs are going to drink the blood, apparently that's the same Kil'jaeden who actually pulled that plan off successfully in our timeline, and would later on create the Lich King and do all the things that he did until we of course killed him in Legion. I think that's just wacky and implausible. So, in this grand new modern vision of the lore where things actually make sense, it's all quite good actually. Because now, the Archimonde that we kill at the end of Warlords of Draenor was the alternate universes, that timeline's Archimonde. Now that throws a little bit of a spanner in the works, but don't worry. And hey, if you're Blizzard, by the way, this is the time to work out where your checkbook is. And hey, I'm pretty sure you have my address anyway. Get ready to authorize some beans. Don't worry, I won't charge you too much. So, Blizzard wrote Alternative Universe Gul'dan to have made a pact with the one true Legion across all timelines, specifically a pact with Kil'jaeden. Of course, the Kil'jaeden that we defeat in Legion, who commands Gul'dan to travel to our timeline and kick off the Legion expansion. Now, this can all be very easily resolved, because Kil'jaeden is the cunning one, right? He's the really smart dude between him and Archimonde. So, following Kil'jaeden's defeat at the Sunwell, of course in the Burning Crusade expansion, he would have been watching us through his various agents and spies. And soon enough, Rathian would be struck by the spirit of Aman'Thul and would predict a Legion invasion. This happens, I believe, in patch 5.3, thereabouts, of Mists of Pandaria. That caused Rathian to get really desperate. Rathian actually got so desperate that he decided he would set events into motion that would see the timeline split with the Iron Horde invading, because Rathian, for some goofy reason, decided it would be better to just have an infinite bunch of Iron Hordes defend Azeroth instead of us. Rathian was a weird guy when he was that young. Anyway, Kil'jaeden would have seen all this stuff going on, right? Not only via agents that were on Pandaria and Draenor, because we've got to imagine the Legion will have agents and acolytes all over the place, but also probably through the Rift of Oln. Now, the Rift of Oln is a very strange, spooky place. It's a deep fissure in the Emerald Dream that, in the novel Stormrage, we learn bleeds into the Twisting Nether and the Great Dark. It's all timey-wimey and weird. Of course, if the Emerald Dream is part of the World Soul, if it's tied to the World Soul, or maybe the Plane of Life, then we can, yes, expect all of these wacky things to be possible. Things such as this. What do we find in the corpse of Archimonde when we defeat him at the end of Warlords of Draenor? We find a fragment of the Emerald Nightmare. Yeah, if you wondered why you got a Emerald Dream moose mount for killing a Legion boss at the end of WoD, that's why. Now, the only way it really could have got there is through the Rift of Oln being a bit weird. And given we know the time, space, weird properties of the Rift, and we know about Kil'jaeden's goal of course, invading Azeroth, it's really no wonder that this happened. I mean, in all likelihood, Kil'jaeden probably worked out some way of getting AU Archimonde to go and launch that big final strike, and failing that, of course, he was able to make his pact with AU Gul'dan, right? And this all fits into the sort of thing that our Kil'jaeden would do. He makes plans. He's cunning, right? He exploited Gul'dan, meaning that the Legion expansion happened. Now I want you to think back to Azarath. That's the Legion-owned Azeroth we see in the Time Rifts. Because if it is one Legion across all of time, then they already have Azeroth. Why do they care about our timeline? There's nothing else in the canon that works like that. Now, there is a loose end here. If I'm going to say that there is not one Legion across all of time, as I think is very heavily supported in the lore, I do not think the Blizzard will hold to that very silly old idea. If that's the case, then yeah, it means that our Archimonde is still regenerating. It means that their Archimonde is dead. It means that our Kil'jaeden's dead. And it means that in the WoD expansion, we never killed their Kil'jaeden. It was his plan that was thwarted by Garrosh and us, right? Now, the answer is we have no idea what happens to other universe Kil'jaeden, but I think it's very easy. We can just say that since Yrel has quite obviously united the whole world under the light, we can just assume that Yrel and co defeated him. I mean, if that is the case, it certainly will help to raise the stakes when we next meet Yrel and her forces. Now then, what does this actually mean for us? What are the opportunities? In 10.1.5, Iridikron successfully sucks what appears to be an all-consuming void essence out from Galakrond. That explains why, in the old canon of Galakrond, he was a hungry, hungry boy that risked sort of consuming the world. So he sucks out this void essence stuff, he leaves through a portal, quite clearly to Xal'atath, and he says that now that he has this essence, the Harbinger, who, as I've talked about in another video, is potentially Xal'atath or Ashara, will be able to pry Azeroth from the Titan's grasp. And with Azeroth being all that the Titans actually care about, that when they come to reclaim or defend her, that he will be waiting for them. So, if this Harbinger makes a move soon, then expect the Titans to pay us a visit, which will be pretty crazy. So if the Titans are away, what happens to Sargeras? Will Illidan stay behind to keep watch over him? And given the Titans' outlook, would Illidan even trust them? I mean, look what happened whenever Zira didn't really like the idea of Illidan's freedom. He was quite pissed off about that. The Titans, of course, will only see him as a means to an end. Whatever happens, though, it will be the next step on Sargeras' journey, bringing one of the big Burning Legion characters, I don't want to say back into the story in a surprising way, but giving us a way in which the next step of his plot can happen, because we all knew that he didn't get defeated in Legion. He would obviously play a role in the future. Archimonde's soul then is also in play. I'd say it likely has not regenerated yet. There are multiple ways that it could come back, though, either naturally or a powerful item or sacrifice could be used to hasten his return to the world. This isn't me just spitballing and making shit up. We actually saw this happen with High Lord Cruel, I believe in the Legion expansion, and that's why you were fighting him in the Mage Tower quest. Anyway, there is another wild card here that could be involved. Sire Denathrius. Him and his Dreadlords are still in play. They survived Shadowlands, and in 10.1.5, there is even a Dreadlord as a part of the Warlock quest. I mean, does that hint that Denathrius is up to something in the I suppose with this post-Legion chaos that's going on with the forces of the Fel, right? It's like demons are naturally chaotic. They've got no Sargeras to lead them. Denathrius and his fine boys could be working an angle there. And indeed, if they wanted to claim something rather powerful, well, Archimonde is tremendously powerful, and because we know Archimonde is also not tremendously intelligent, I think that Archimonde could clearly be manipulated and used by somebody like Denathrius. As for what any of these characters would do, that's a bloody mystery, I can't tell you. But what we do know is that the Legion is functionally non-existent. However, demonkind absolutely still exist, and without a fallen titan to rule them, expect something perhaps more akin to the great game in Warhammer, where all the demons and the Chaos Gods are constantly vying for influence. Blizzard's Cosmic Playbox has so many toys in it. We have Ashara, Xalatath, Medivh, technically Madan, Archimonde, Denathrius, Mal'Ganis, Void Ethereals, Void Lords, the Master who Shadreen serves, the Titans, Illidan, Sargeras, Elune, and probably a bunch else. So by this stage in this video, more than anything, I'm tired. Maybe you are too, because this lore has been quite dense, baffling. It's been us doing a sort of clean-up hatchet job on things that do make complete sense with how the game is right now, just Blizzard haven't really spoken officially about them because, let's be real, they just haven't needed to. Who's been thinking about Archimonde lately? Probably only me, because I'm weird. Okay, so this represents then an era, this old sort of set of the lore, where Blizzard truly had no idea what they were doing, right? They used to do the lore absolutely by the seat of their pants. Now it turned out that the people actually building the game, all of its small little elements, they put a lot of heart and soul into the world building, and that's why I think so many of us lore fans really enjoyed the world. They felt all this depth and richness. But even for a good example of that, you know the really good quest in Cataclysm, it's kind of more about honor and stuff like that, where Garrosh ultimately kicks the bad guy off the bridge? Yeah, turned out that was actually made because I believe it was Afrasabi actually, and the quest designers weren't in sync about the direction his character would go in. It can't happen by accident, and that was one of the really good moments. And that just shows you the level of chaos, the lack of, I think, a strong centralized vision there was for that lore. And while a lot of this you think, oh, Chris Metzen, he's the lore guy, you have to remember, Chris Metzen heads this up for Blizzard. He was working on Project Titan, later to become Overwatch. He was doing a hell of a lot of work on the StarCraft franchise, on the Diablo franchise. It's no wonder WoW's lore was a goddamn shit show, even in the time of Warlords of Draenor. And even as that proceeded into Legion, we see strange things like the entire plotline of Sylvanas seemingly changed drastically from the pre-Legion marketing to Legion to Battle for Azeroth. We see Zoval be retrofitted in. They played so fast and loose with so many concepts that it genuinely left the lore being a hard-to-follow, obtuse mess that is really frustrating for a lot of players. Today, then, what have we done? I think we've fixed a major blunder in the lore. If we assume the Blizzard are following the implications of what they've actually placed into their world with 10.1.5, this allows a number of Legion-related characters to still exist. I think they could play a very exciting role in the future. Take Archimonde, I mean the prime villain of Warcraft 3. very evocative villain that goes right back to the heart of this franchise. I think it's good having him around. The way that could tie into the recent things that have happened with Iridikron, even Illidan and Sargeras, that's all particularly strong. And this also makes their use of timelines infinitely more clean, and the future a lot more clear. So there you go. I would love to hear what you think about this, and what cool thoughts have you had from visiting all the different alternate realities in the Time Rifts? To be honest, I've just thought the Time Rifts to be really, really fun, and I think when Blizzard are giving us a world where everyone's a bloody Murloc and treating it in the same way that they're treating the world where the Legion won, the world where, I don't know, the Mechagon people won, it is clearly Blizzard being like, hey, listen, don't worry too much about these alternate timelines. They're just away in their own little bubble. Don't worry about the things that connect between them. Phew. Okay, that's it for me. Be sure to check out today's sponsor. They do a hell of a lot to help keep the show alive. And I'll see you next time.